Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry we're doing this on Monday afternoon instead of the usual Saturday. I said on Twitter, that's where all the updates will be, that I had to work Saturday and Sunday. I had 2 long days, 2 long commutes, and I just did not have time to do the stream until now. And I've got a couple things to do before tonight, so let's just do this and try to get it over with so I can get the rest of my day started. Try to keep this one short. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on Q&A and stuff because I've got a few things to do and not a whole lot of time to do it today. So let's just do this. Hardy's Revenge is what they're billing this show as. I'm pretty sure this was the third Impact show the TNA have billed as Hardy's Revenge. It's starting to lose its cachet now, TNA, just saying. You can't just keep drawing from this particular well forever. It will dry out. Anywho, the night starts with a really nice promo segment, made even nicer because broken Matt Hardy was not involved for a change. That was very nice. We get Drew Galloway and EC3 arguing about who gets the next shot at Lashley. They both have an argument. They both make some good points, and I like seeing some tension between these guys. Like I said before, just because they're both faces doesn't mean that they have to get along. And this is doing Galloway in particular a lot of good, because I feel like the more pissed off he gets, the more he loses his composure, the more he moves away from the generic babyface character that made him feel kind of bland initially. That's good. Now, this was the first show where they teased the possibility of Galloway possibly maybe becoming, if not full-blown heel, then maybe more of a tweener. And if that happens, I think he'll be more compelling for it. Now, then Lashley comes out. He says that they'll have to work together now if they want those title shots, which sets up a tag match, which I'm of two minds on. One was excited to see Eli Drake involved in a big match with 3 world champions. The other was annoyed that it ended with Eli Drake getting jobbed out again. But he had a competitive match with 3 of the biggest stars in the company right now, so maybe that did something for him. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And again, we see Galloway acting not so babyface-ish, with pushing EC3 into the spear by Lashley. Was that intentional? Just a coincidence? I don't know. But I'm more interested in what Galloway does next now than I was when he was just doing the stand-up thing. There, it works for him, so nice job with that. And next, we have the Decay. They come out, and Rosemary's been doing some stuff on her own, and Abyss and Crazy Steve want to know what she's up to, and apparently she's been talking to this other person. Now we find out what her deal is. Apparently, Rosemary is trying to get Bram to join the Decay, which was odd. And once again, Rosemary kills it on the mic, though I scratched my head at her argument of Bram's partners all turning on him, because as I recall, it was the other way around. Some strange continuity gaps on this show. You know, Bram says no, and they beat the shit out of him, but I assume we haven't seen the end of this, and I'm cool with that. I'm hesitant to mess with the gestalt that the Decay have right now by adding new people to the group, but if they're gonna do it, I think Bram would fit in with them without changing his character all that much, if they choose to go that way at all. Maybe they won't. Maybe Bram will get a new partner and this will just become a feud. Maybe it'll be something else. I don't know where it's going yet. But this is a hell of a lot more interesting to me than the Decay feuding with the Bromance. I'll tell you that. And this is more like what the Decay ought to be doing right now, in my opinion. They've got no compelling tag teams to feud with, so give them some kind of other storyline to work with, like taking out hits on people like they did with Jeff, or something like what they did here. The characters lend themselves to a lot of possibilities, so it's dumb to not take advantage of that just because the tag division is not so great right now. And while this doesn't excuse the sorry state of the tag division, the sorry state that the tag team division is in, It should make it easier to pass the time until they do more work on it. And after that, wait a minute. What's this? A knockout segment that didn't involve Gail Kim? Whoa! Wow! I must admit, this was as stunning to me as it was welcome. So we get Jade versus Marty here. It's not a bad match, but it felt like it was lacking something. I didn't get the sense that these were two former best friends who now hate each other. It just didn't feel like it reached the right level of intensity to sell that, and it wasn't as hard-hitting as it probably should have been, maybe outside of that one spot where Jade smashed Marty's face into the ring apron. That was cool. Plus, it was kind of slow-paced and strangely one-sided, with Jade just beating on Marty for most of it, and Marty not getting a whole lot of offense, which kind of telegraphed the finish, honestly. Not terrible by any means, it just felt like the psychology was off. That said, I'm very happy to see a knockout feud that does not involve Gail Kim get some attention. I'll take whatever I can get before October comes around, and this company's glorification of Gail Kim will most likely reach never-before-seen heights until they all start worshipping her as some kind of deity. Seems like that's the path they've been on for a while. Speaking of knockouts who are not Gail, the new Knockouts champion Sienna made her one and only appearance in the last 2 weeks in this nice hype video building her up. And she says that she intends to take out Gail Kim. She says that her goal is to destroy Gail. So Gail will once again be feuding for the Knockouts title pretty soon. Which is the exact thing I did not want to happen. It's a nice video, and it's good to see the writers do something with Sienna while she's not on the show for whatever stupid reason. But this is the kind of thing we should have been seeing before she won the title. It's like, well, she's the champion now, so we should probably do something to help the audience get to know her and hopefully get her over. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Aren't those bases that you should cover before you put the title on her? It just seems so bass-backwards to me. From there, we go to the Bennetts following up on Dixie slapping Maria last week. And one thing that was abundantly clear about this segment was that Dixie and Billy Corgan were completely outclassed on the microphone. And it wasn't even close. Maria and Mike absolutely smoked these two, which is not what you want when they're not the ones that we're supposed to root for. On top of that, this whole thing still confuses me. I still can't figure out why Dixie's slapping Maria is supposed to be a big deal. Okay, she's the employer and Maria's the employee. I get that, but Bully Ray can put his employer through a table, breaking her back, and no one thinks twice about it. But the employer slapping someone who works under her is this potentially huge legal scandal? Why? It just doesn't track with what's come before, and the whole thing feels really awkward to me. As does Maria's reasoning here. She says that Dixie admits to being wrong, so she should be punished because Maria was punished when she did something wrong, which caused her to break her hand. But that's not what happened. She broke her hand weeks before the match with Gail, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that even happened in TNA to begin with. Like I said, some weird continuity gaps here. And most disturbingly of all, this ends with Billy suggesting that Dixie go home for a week, and Dixie is shocked that Billy would take the Bennett side. Even though legally, and I use that word loosely, that was probably the right call. Please tell me that this is not the start of another power struggle storyline. Please. TNA, you've done enough of those. I know it's been your go-to angle one of your go-to angles for a very, very long time, and you're probably hesitant to get rid of it. But it's time. The time has come. No more power struggles, please. Okay, then to placate Mike Bennett, Billy gives him an X Division title shot, even though Mike Bennett doesn't do the moves that gift makers like to jerk off to. Nice self-awareness there. Because he wants to cash in Option C at Destination X because that's the only way he can get a world title shot right now. And right there, at that precise moment, I think we all knew what was about to happen. After just 2 weeks and one title defense, Eddie Edwards loses the X Division title to Mike Bennett. Oh my God. So just like that, Destination X becomes a vehicle for Mike Bennett to get a world title shot instead of being the one time out of the whole year that the X Division is actually treated like it matters. Is anyone really surprised? You know, I'm pretty conflicted about this. On the one hand, it does pretty much shit on the X Division, but on the other, it's not like they had a compelling scenario for an Option C cash-in before this show. And if recent history is any indication, that title will probably change hands another 5 times in the next couple weeks anyway, so the whole point is moot. I don't like the hot potato title changes. I think once in a while, when you've got the right story, they can work, but they've been doing this entirely too much lately. But this does instantly put a lot of attention on the X Division title where there was none before, so my feelings about this situation are complicated. Stuff like this makes me think that maybe it's time for Option C to just go away, because it's starting to become more gimmicky now. It's not really something they use to create new stars and elevate the division as a whole like it was originally intended to be. It's just something they do out of habit. And as we're seeing now, during a period when they don't have an incredibly deep X Division roster and don't have a compelling storyline for one of those guys to cash in Option C, and for whatever reason don't feel like doing a storyline about the X Division champion choosing to not cash in Option C, like I suggested, we get stuff like this. They had a decent amount of build-up to Eddie Edwards winning the X Division title, only for him to lose it 2 weeks later to further a Mike Bennett storyline, which is about him caring about the title only because he can use it to cash in for a world title shot. That doesn't do Eddie or the X Division any good. You know, backstage, Robbie E is getting butthurt that Jesse is flirting with Raquel, which leads me to 2 observations. Number 1, either Raquel didn't care that her supposed friends were using a camera to spy on her while she took her clothes off, or no one told her about that, and I'm not sure which is worse. 2, how does Robbie's pregnant wife feel about him being bent out of shape because he can't commit that adultery that he apparently wanted to do? Jesus, what an asshole. Braxton Sutter comes out for a match with some local jobber wearing a Halloween costume that looks so cheap he might as well have gotten it at the bargain bin at Kmart. Why the hell did they even let him on TV in that crappy getup? Good lord. But Rockstar Spud kicks this guy out because I guess Spud is pissed off that he wasn't booked on the show himself. And man, did they give Costume Guy the bitch treatment here. He didn't even put up a fight about this. He just left. Just like that. Such is the authority commanded by Rockstar Spud, apparently. Give Spud some credit, though. This was probably the most engaged the audience has been all night up until that point, thanks to him healing it up here. I mean, great promo by Spud. Made the crowd eager to see him get his ass whooped, and they got behind Braxton Sutter as a result. You know, segments like this show how underrated and underutilized Spud is. You know, he's easily one of the best performers in the company, in my opinion, and it's a shame that they haven't been doing more with the guy lately. Good match. I keep waiting for that Braxton Sutter heel turn, and they keep on not doing it. So maybe they're playing against expectations. Are they self-aware enough to do that? I couldn't tell you, but Sutter seems to be getting over as a face for now. So maybe that isn't needed. We'll see. I get that. To be continued on that one. And then in the main event, we have Matt versus Jeff yet again. This time in the 6 sides of steel. And yet again, we have an insane spot at the end by Jeff, with Matt sandwiched in between the tables and Jeff diving through both of them from the top of the cage, which would probably do more damage to Jeff than Matt. I mean, Jeff is basically just putting himself through a table to get to Matt, and I'm not sure how that hurts Matt more. No, that would probably just hurt Jeff more, wouldn't it? Still an insane spot, though. The part with the ladder, which was kind of weird, I don't know why he bothered with it. It only gave him another 6 inches of height or so, but whatever. I don't want to discount. Stuttering again. Sorry. My brain worked no good. I don't want to discount the effort here. Because they did film this right after Full Metal Mayhem a few days prior, and that match with Eli Drake, and still Jeff is putting his body through this kind of abuse, still diving off the top of the cage through multiple tables. The guy is an absolute lunatic. I don't know how he's still alive. I really don't. With the amount of punishment he's put himself through in such a short span of time. Take a vacation, man. You've earned it. I cannot give Jeff enough props for going through with all that. I mean, he no-sold it at the end. When he hopped right up and pinned Matt after he did it. Yeah, he went through a table, put Matt through another table, dove off the top of the cage, then he just hops right back up. He doesn't sell it at all. That was weird. But nonetheless, give the man major props. Having said this, that spot at the end was the only thing that really stood out to me here. The rest of it felt like a pretty run-of-the-mill cage match just with weapons thrown in. Maybe I'm so burned out and disinterested with this feud that I just don't care as much about it as I would have otherwise. Maybe they were both just so destroyed after Full Metal Mayhem that they wanted to play it safe until the spot at the end. Either way, you could fast forward to the last 60 seconds of the match and not really miss that much. So, I believe that's 3 in a row now that Jeff has won in this particular feud with Matt. So 3 in a row. That has to be it, right? I mean, there's no reason to drag it out any longer. The feud is done. Matt lost. The story is a mess, and wrestling-wise, what else can they possibly do to each other at this point? They've had all the biggest matches they can possibly have. It would be nowhere but downhill from here, and with Matt having lost his damn mind with this broken Matt Hardy gimmick, that would be a pretty slippery slope. So, yeah, awesome ending spot. The rest of the match I could take or leave, but something that was really nice about it, it was the only time we saw Matt Hardy all night. So we didn't have to suffer through any of his colorful talking segments this week. Thank you. Now, not a bad show this week. I don't think there was anything especially bad or especially amazing here, minus the Big Jeff spot. There were some dumb things, but there were some cool things too. The opening segment, the Decay Bram promo, and again, Jeff's cage dive. I'd say overall this show averaged out to being good. Not amazing or anything, but good. So those were my thoughts on Impact, and again, I have a few things to do, so let's just get the Q&A out of the way. Once again, I'm not going to be addressing every single comment in the chat room anymore because, a lot of them don't really need to be addressed because they're just, little things that aren't worth talking about, or, sometimes I get comments that I don't want to address because they're a little offensive or spamming me. So I'm not going to be reading all of them out loud. I'll read the good ones, and I'll address the good comments. So if you want your comments read, make them good. Really think about what you're writing. Let's see. Did anyone notice that Broken Matt looks like Jimmy Jacobs? Come to think of it, yeah, I guess Jimmy Jacobs was doing that Cruella DeVille, Sweeney Todd thing before Matt, wasn't it? You have I think Matt has like the Bride of Frankenstein hair, so he's doing that with it. I don't recall Jimmy Jacobs doing that with his hair. I guess he was too. I guess he was too smart for that. Doesn't Jade get a rematch? You would think so. Galloway exercised his rematch as a former champion, so we can assume that all former champions do get rematch clauses, but apparently not. No, apparently Jade doesn't get a rematch. No, apparently they're going right into Sienna versus Gale, and not bothering to give Jade a rematch, even though she was contractually owed one as the former champion. Yes, they just couldn't wait to get Gail Kim back in the title picture. They just didn't want to wait. They're just gonna go for it and get Jade out of the title picture and away from the Knockouts Championship as quickly as possible, so they can put Gail back in there. Yeah, I'm not terribly thrilled about that. Spud got in too much offense and it just looked unrealistic. I don't think so. I think they're still kind of playing up Sutter as an underdog, and Spud is the quote-unquote veteran, having been in the company for a couple of years now. I don't really agree with that. I think Spud's fine. He was kind of playing the forceful heel here, so I think it was all right. Yeah, he's still the smaller guy, but it's not like Sutter is huge or anything. I think it was okay. The Sutter's still new and everything. Plus, I wouldn't have wanted to see Spud get totally dominated either, because the guy is super talented and, like I said, one of the best performers they have. Let's see. Bram versus Abyss Part 2. Not necessarily. I would hope that it's a little more complicated than that. Hoping there's some kind of story here and that doesn't just become a singles feud. Like I said, they could have Bram get a partner and have it become a tag feud, or they could do something else story-wise. Bunch of things they could do with that, actually. I think Rosemary was referring to when Bram was in the Ascension. Yeah, well, I wasn't watching that. I remember when he turned on Magnus, and I remember when he turned on EY. Of course, EY then turned on him immediately after, but Bram technically did it first. So they assumed she was referring to that. I wouldn't know about Bram being in the Ascension because, like I said, I don't watch NXT. I know he was in the group at some point, but now he's not. That's all. That's the extent of my knowledge on it. Do you wish Billy Corgan got full control of the company instead? That's a hard question to answer because there's a lot we don't know in that situation. I think somebody else having at least partial control of the company and having more of a say in business and creative matters is probably a good thing, because I think Dixie could benefit from having somebody else at the table and having someone to throw out suggestions, because maybe she shouldn't be trying to handle everything by herself. But as far as me wishing Billy got full control of the company, I don't know. Say whatever you want about Dixie Carter. She's had a lot of things said about her, and a lot of them are deserved. But one way or another, she has managed to keep the company in business. Maybe not grow the business, certainly not grow the business domestically, but she has kept them in business. And so she's been able to do at least that. And so I don't know if I'd want somebody taking control of the company fully, and not even Billy Corgan, because we don't know how much aptitude Billy Corgan has in the business end of things. He has his own indie promotion, the whole Resistance Pro thing, but what would he be like running a company? Like being the man in charge of a company this size? We don't know. It's a question mark right now. But I am happy that he at least has partial ownership. Yeah, no surprise they already moved Sienna onto the Gale, right? You should get my head. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. I was really looking forward to see Sienna and Jade have some one-on-one matches and have a one-on-one feud. But they're just wasting no time at all putting Gale in there, and it's unnecessary and it's pointless, and I don't see what it accomplishes, especially since I have very little faith that Sienna will come out of that looking good. I mean, I'm sure she'll have good matches with Gale, but ultimately I think Gale's going to go over because that's what always seems to happen. And, Gale's already said that she's thinking about retirement in the next couple of years. So they really should be at a point in this knockout division where they stop putting Gale over at the expense of everybody else and start focusing on putting over the new generation of knockouts, because those are the women that are going to have to carry this division once Gale leaves. And so far, the job they've done of doing that has been a little questionable. Because Gale is always there, always monopolizing the top spot, never seems to let anybody else share the top spot, and it's become counterproductive. It's been counterproductive for a long time now, and it needs to stop at some point before Gale retires. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to hit the ground running when the day comes that Gale isn't there anymore. Jade versus Marty I really liked. They made Jade look dominant in the ring, but made Marty look good by outsmarting her. They did. I would have preferred a more competitive match. It's like, well, most of the match was just Jade beating Marty down until Marty just cheap shotted her with the baton. I would have preferred something more competitive to let Marty get in a little more offense. I mean, she's not a bad wrestler. I mean, she's not on Jade's level, but she doesn't suck or anything. So I would have preferred something that made Marty look a little bit stronger, because I mean she deserves a chance to prove that she can be a star in her own right. She's obviously not the top priority right now, but give her a shot. She's not untalented. TNA needs more people on the roster. The product is getting stale. Seeing the same people. Isn't that what they've been doing? They have been adding new people to the roster. Mike Bennett and Maria have only been there for a couple of months. Braxton Sutter is brand new. Rosemary is brand new. Sienna is brand new. They've got Chelsea Green coming in the not-too-distant future. They've still got Caleb Conley and Marsh Rocket set to debut at some point soon. I'm assuming. They've been signed, so we're going to be seeing them on the TV show. I don't know when, but they're on the horizon, so they've got new people coming in, and they have signed a bunch of new people just recently. So I really don't agree with that, actually. X Division gets maybe a few weeks of focus during this time of year, and then it's right back to nothing happening as usual. Yeah, that seems to be the pattern that they fall into every year. I thought the purpose of Option C was to create a platform for the X Division and maybe elevate it to something more than what it was at the time. And it could be. It still could be, but they just don't take that opportunity. They don't take that chance. They focus on the X Division during a few weeks out of the year around Destination X when Option C is a thing, because it's become a habit that they do Option C, and they have a couple weeks of fallout afterwards, usually, and then it goes right back to just not being a focus of the show and maybe getting on Impact once or twice a month, and otherwise they just don't do a lot with it. And it's disappointing, What's your thoughts on Roman Reigns getting suspended? It doesn't make me like Roman Reigns. Like I've said this before, but he doesn't come off like an authentically nice person. I think that's part of the reason why the audience turns on him constantly, just boos him out of the building. Say whatever you want about John Cena, but he does get usually half the crowd to cheer him. So he does get a contingent of the fan base cheering him. Yeah, it's a mixed reaction usually. You always got your Cena sucks people in there. But he does have people that like him, and he does sell it like he likes being a babyface. And he does seem like a nice person, even though his character is kind of insufferable at times. Reigns doesn't come off that way. He doesn't seem like a nice guy. He doesn't seem like he likes being a nice guy. He seems like kind of a smug prick who's just pretending to be a nice guy because that's what the writers want him to be. It feels very disingenuous. And stuff like this just, it doesn't help that perception at all. Okay, he's disingenuous, and then also he's juicing. So, is that going to make people want to cheer him now? No, it's not. It's going to do the opposite. At least he owned up to it. What do you think about Vince Russo admission about Pop TV? Haven't heard about it. Help me out here. EC3 Drew's segment was really good. Both came off as more than just generic faces. Yeah, I think EC3 has never had a problem feeling generic. Even when he turned face initially, he never he didn't fall into the trap that so many people do that they lose what made them popular in the first place. What made people want to see them turn face in the first place. No, he kept that his inherent EC3-ness. If I can coin that phrase. Drew's problem is that he's always been a very, very generic character. And I think, like I said, I think this was the first episode where you started seeing a few shades of gray in there. Like I said, you piss the guy off, you see more of that personality come out. And I think they need to head more in that direction and get away from like the stand-up guy who's just generic babyface number 17, Give the guy more personality, and I think the closer he gets to a heel turn, or at least a tweener turn, it's going to be very beneficial to him as a character. Even when Gail doesn't have a match on the show, she still annoys me somehow. Yeah. Even when Gail herself didn't appear, they were setting up a title feud for her. Because Gail just has to have the Knockouts title back, because it's been so long since she had the Knockouts title. She just desperately needs it back, because that's so much more important than giving Jade a high-profile feud for the title. Jade as the former champion, It's so important that Gail gets back in the title picture as quickly as possible. Ugh. Stuff like this. This is why I resent Gail Kim now. I don't want to, but they've kind of forced that on me. Because Gail gets so much focus and the rest of the division suffers for it. Because Gail is the top priority in the Knockout division. She always is the top priority in the Knockout division. And it shouldn't be that way anymore. It's not fair. And it's just very counterproductive, and I don't like it. Major props on making the live streams entertaining. I try my best. I don't feel like I always succeed, but I try. Dixie should just fire Maria for putting her hands on her first, just saying. Well, then whether Maria was right or not to do that, Dixie did slap her, and legally speaking, you can't do that. So if she fired Maria, Maria would probably sue her. If we're going by, the logic of this feud right now, of course it's contradicting stuff that's come before, but, like I said, continuity gaps this week. It's not what they were focused on, apparently. Just wanted to selectively enforce this legal stuff, whether it made sense with what's come before or not. Apparently faces have to do what the heels say or they're not good guys. Odd logic. I guess the story is that the heels are using the law, selectively enforcing the law to their advantage, and it's just kind of seems like a Weasley thing to do, but like I said, the whole thing feels awkward to me. Good news is TNA has 12 knockouts on the roster. The bad news is a couple maybe on the bubble, most likely Rebel and Madison Rayne. I hate the thought of Rebel getting cut, as she has a lot to offer in my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't like to see that either. I think Rebel has some things to do. She's talented enough that she could at least be a good manager for somebody. That was her original role with the Menagerie, and she was probably she was certainly the most entertaining part of that act. I know the Menagerie set the bar low, but I think she has good performance instincts, and there are things you can do with her. Maybe not push her as a wrestler that much, but I mean, she has value, I think. And at least in Madison, well, she's kind of the only veteran knockout they have right now that can work with the newbies and make them look good and stuff and put them over and give them credibility building wins because Gail doesn't like doing that very much apparently. So I would hope that they keep Madison around in that at least so she can perform in that capacity. Because if Madison's not there, well, who else do the new girls have to get over on? You know, all the other longtime stalwarts are gone. It's just Madison and Gail now. So it's like, well, how do you put these new girls over? Because they weren't doing that when they had the chance, not really, and now they're in kind of a tough spot. Come on, Robbie E's wife knows this is fake. It's acting, man. Can't get on the guy for that. Oh, really? So Robbie E's wife knows that professional wrestling is scripted, huh? Wow. I never would have thought of that. That's you're missing my point, man. Okay, they've showed on social media, on Twitter, they've made no secret that Robbie's married, that his wife is pregnant, and this is the company that likes to do these work shoot type of angles all the time. Okay? They incorporate work shoot angles a lot. And so if you're blurring the line between work and shoot, I'm going to call attention to it when an angle seems to be selectively choosing to ignore that type of stuff. Okay, you can't have, if you're going to have one work shoot thing that incorporates elements of reality and then do this other thing that actively ignores reality and wants to be just a work, that's going to be confusing. You have to have your show tonally consistent. You can't have it apply to one thing and not another. That's why I complain, because if you go from one storyline that takes things of reality and brings them into a worked environment, and then you have this other storyline that's doing the exact opposite. Okay, well, what are we supposed to pay? In what situation are we supposed to pay attention to reality, and in what situation are we supposed to not do this? Just be consistent. That's all I'm saying. If Robbie's wife, if in storyline wise, if Robbie's wife is not a thing, then don't have him mention her on fucking Twitter. You know? Or, just fucking be consistent. That's all I'm saying. Been waiting for this for days. Hope all is well. Yeah, it's fine. I was just working on the weekend. I was busy Saturday, Sunday. Didn't have time to sit down and stream anything until now. I just hope this Sienna versus Jane Cena feud doesn't turn into Matt versus Jeff type of feud. Oh, where it just continues on and on and on and on and on beyond the point of, well, not absurdity, but just beyond its natural endpoint. And they just continue doing it seemingly just for the sake of doing something with the people involved, when they'd be much better suited doing other things. Because that's what I feel like the Jeff Matt thing is doing. I think they're doing it just to give Matt a spot on the show, and just to do something with Matt. And unfortunately, I feel like that's what's going to be the case with Gail and Sienna. I would not be shocked if they drag that out until Bound for Glory. And, it's still several months away. I don't want to see Gail in the title picture that long. I don't want to see it. I'd rather Sienna plow through Gail. And I said this in a previous stream. I think there's a better story to tell with Gail not being the champion and having her get beaten by Sienna. So at the very least, it gives her a new type of challenge and a new type of storyline you can do with her. Before I said there was a better story to tell with Gail losing her job, and I still believe that. I still think that's the way they should have gone. So yeah, I think it'd be more interesting to have Sienna destroy Gail, go over Gail, get put over by Gail, and then go back to Jade and have her feud with Jade for the title. I think that would be a better way to go and more beneficial to the future of the Knockout division because, Gail is a lot of things, but the future of the Knockout division, she is not. That's girls like Sienna and Jade and Rosemary and Allie and girls like that. They should be the focus. Gail should not be the focus anymore. She shouldn't be. And I lost my place. Son of a bitch. All right, here we go. They should have made a number one contenders match between EC3 and Galloway. EC3 goes over, then Galloway screws over EC3 in response to EC3 costing Galloway last time, leading to EC3 versus heel Galloway. Yeah, that would be one way to do it. My thing is, it would also be the obvious way to do it. You're thinking like WWE does, where they don't tend to go outside the box that much. So if you're always going to take the path of least resistance, you're not really going to accomplish anything or break any new ground. So I kind of like that they didn't do the most obvious thing imaginable. There are many times when doing the most obvious thing is also the most not. How do I say this? Where like the most obvious thing to do, it'd be the most realistic thing to do because it makes the most sense. But I think they justified doing it this way. Wasn't an issue for me. I imagine Matt comes out in a full body cast and saying, "It's not over." Yeah, you joke about that, but they might do it. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if that's how this week's show starts. Matt comes out, is getting wheeled around in a stretcher, and he's got Rebby holding the mic up to him as he lies on his back. And they're just wheeling him around the ring as he's cutting this ridiculous promo in another new accent or something, saying, "This is over when I say it's over, Brother Nero." Oh boy. Spud is way better as a face. Being a heel may work on the indie scene, but in TNA he is just not believable as a heel. Man, I disagree. Did you watch that segment? The audience was more engaged in what Spud was doing than they were at any point previously in the show. He got the crowd into the segment. Okay, maybe it doesn't work for you as a heel, but I think the guy is super charismatic and he's talented enough to pull it off. Is he more believable wrestling-wise, playing the underdog babyface? Yeah, probably. But character-wise, I think the guy does great work as a heel. Sutter and Rocket should be a tag team. They clearly would be way better than the Bromance. I've never actually seen Marsh Rocket wrestle. I saw one highlight video about him. Seems like a good wrestler. They'd be better than Bromance. Character-wise, almost certainly. Yeah. I don't know what they'd be like wrestling-wise because I've never seen them tag together, but yeah. Not a fan of the Bromance, as you know. I hated this episode. I feel like they're doing another power struggle storyline with Corgan and Dixie. Yeah, it does seem to be what it's hinting at, and I'm not looking forward to it either. Rematches don't matter in the knockout division as long as Gale is next in line for the title. I guess so. It's depressing. I hope they do Bram versus the Decay. If Bram wins, the Decay disbands, and if the Decay wins and Bram joins them. Oh, I wouldn't want there to be any chance of the Decay disbanding. That would frighten me. Because that shouldn't happen. Do you think guys like The Addiction, Crimson, Amazing Red, and Matt Morgan have a place in TNA, or would it be retreading if they come back? Oh, The Addiction slash Bad Influence would be a huge boon to the tag team division right now. I would love to have those guys back. Crimson, I was a big fan of. I know he's getting himself into a little trouble recently, but I thought the guy had star potential. Amazing Red, I would love to see that Crimson Amazing Red tag team that they never did. Um, think that would be really cool. Matt Morgan, I don't know. I don't hate Matt Morgan, but he's been retired for a while now. My guess is Jade will get her rematch, but Marty will weasel her way into the match after beating Jade. I'd be okay with that. If it happens. It doesn't appear as if Jade is in line for a title rematch, but we'll see. Corgan looked uncomfortable out there, as did the whole segment. Yeah, he's still getting his feet wet as an on-screen performer, I guess. Like I said, Mike and Maria completely destroyed Corgan and Dixie on the microphone. They came off so much better. I think Billy is showing signs of improvement, but he's not a natural at it, I think, so he's going to have to work on that. Dixie is Dixie. We know what she delivers, but the whole segment was awkwardly written, and I just didn't feel like it came off incredibly well. Minus Mike and Maria doing, again, cutting very good promos. I'd love for them to do a fatal four-way with Marty, Jade, Kim, and Sienna. Marty gets the championship and have Jade chasing her. No, I don't want another hot potato title change. I'm fine with the match, but keep it on Sienna for a while. I didn't agree with Jade losing the title, but Sienna has it now, so roll with that. Give her a title reign that means something, and don't just take it off her immediately to put it on somebody else. Keep it on Sienna for a while, and enough that people will care about her losing it, Is Rebby ever going to wrestle on Impact? As far as I know, she hasn't wrestled since she had the baby, so maybe that's not what she's looking for. If they're smart and want Sienna to be the next big thing, she's got to be the one that retires Gail at Bound for Glory. This is assuming that Gail wants to retire at Bound for Glory, and we don't know if that's the case. She said she said she might have a couple more years in her, so we don't know. I think it would make more sense for Jade to retire Gail for a number of reasons, but that's just me. Marty Jade was perfect. I thought they're going to have at least 5 months worth of a feud, so having it go 5 minutes is kind of ideal. At least 5 months worth of feud, huh? Well, we'll see. We don't know if that's the case. Or we don't know how long that feud is penciled in to go on for. If that was just the beginning of a lengthy feud, okay. But we don't know if it is. Then maybe they'll have a couple matches and then call it quits. Bram, I hope, turns heel. He's more interesting than he is now. I don't know. I think his character probably better as a heel, but people have been reacting to him favorably as a face, so it's something different. I don't think it's a big deal that he's a face right now. I think he's been doing good work. I hate Option C. It makes the X Division second rate. They got to make it the main attraction, which is what it's always been. What? Makes the X Division second rate? How? I'm not following you. Does it mean it makes the X Division title secondary to the world title? Well, it is. Every title should be secondary to the world title, because the world title is the biggest prize. I disagree with it. I think if they're going to do Option C, it should be the main attraction, because that's what elevates the X Division as a whole, or at least in an ideal situation. I still want to see storylines of of the X Division champion choosing to not cash in option C, because I think that's a storyline they have to do at some point. But when you have a situation of an X Division champion holding up the X Division title and the world title at the same time, it makes that guy look like a bigger deal. The problem is how the stick in the landing and the fallout afterwards, which is what they've usually fucked up on. Do you think Ryback would fit in TNA? No. Do you think Reigns being suspended could be good for his character? No, I don't. Because I think they're probably just going to go right back to Reigns being a babyface that everybody hates. Like I said, this is not going to make him more likable. It's going to do the opposite. Sienna versus Gale accomplishes nothing but pandering to Gale's ego of being the focus. Yeah. Took the words out of my mouth. Did you hear about Reigns' suspension? Yes, I did. Will you watch the draft? Probably not. Like I said, haven't watched SmackDown in years. Jeff is needed back in at the top and Matt draws badly. Just use Broken Matt as a comedy mid-carder. That way he gets less screen time and be so terrible he's hilarious. One of the ways that I was hoping they would course correct this Matt Hardy character after Slammiversary was playing him more for comedy. Like, keep the character basically the same, but play him for laughs instead of having him be in a serious feud. Because trying to be serious is what's fucking the whole thing up. If he were an over-the-top bad guy who's just like a complete crazy pants, and he's over the top as a way of getting laughs, that might work. But there's no reason to put this guy in such a high-profile feud. If he's in the mid-card, fine. I don't think Jeff is really needed in the world title picture at the moment, but yeah, eventually he should go back in there. ROH's tag division or WWE's tag division? Probably ROH's. What do you think Roderick Strong possibly going to WWE, and who would you like to see him? See him feud with, you mean? I think it's a possibility. He could end up in that Cruiserweight Classic tournament, if nothing else. I think he might have a place, at least in NXT. The guy's never been that great of a talker, so I think he might benefit from an environment where you've got people in his ears scripting the promos, and he doesn't have to worry about coming up with something himself. He can just memorize some verbiage and recite that. It might be helpful to a guy who is not necessarily the most natural speaker in the world. So if he's got people helping him with that, that might be good for him. I wouldn't have thought that he'd be the type of wrestler that WWE would go after, but they seem to be changing their minds about the smaller guys that don't have the look of a big star. So who knows? Could be wrong, but didn't Brooke leave because she didn't want to lose the Knockouts title to Gale? Information varies on that. The way I heard it was that she left due to quote-unquote political reasons. And that was right after she lost the Knockouts title to Gale in completely bullshit fashion. That never should have happened. Brooke should have kept the title. Never should have lost it to Gale again. They have that storyline where Brooke works really hard to win the title back, and then Gale just takes it off her immediately for no fucking reason. It was bullshit. Fucking Brooke should have kept the damn title. Instead, they have Gale win it just so she can hold on to it for months and months and months and do basically nothing with it. And for what purpose? It was stupid. Look, I don't know for sure why Brooke left, but if that was part of the reason, I wouldn't blame her, because I'd be pissed off too. TNA should bring in familiar veteran women, Mischief, Cheerleader, Melissa, Lufisto, etc. And disagree. I think they should be looking to the future, maybe signing like next generation of women. I like all those people. Um, Mischief's been around forever. I don't know how much mileage there is left in her. Same thing with Lufisto. Melissa will probably be around longer, but they didn't exactly use her well the last time she was there. So unless something's changed about their mindset, I wouldn't be optimistic about her chances, because I wouldn't want to see her come back just to get jobbed out again all the time. Is WWE bringing back all these old talents just proof that they are WCW now? No, it's proof that they don't have a big enough talent roster to have a complete roster for both brands. Before they could have one complete roster for spread out over 2 shows and just have everyone going back and forth every week. But now they're going to have one complete roster for Raw, one complete roster for SmackDown, and they don't have the talent pool to fill out both shows. So they're bringing back all these old talents to supplement the talent roster. And I think before long, you're going to start to see people crisscrossing between the shows every week, even though that shouldn't be possible, and it's just going to become a big mess again. Yeah, you're not getting on TNA for the consistency. You're getting on Robbie for messing around while his wife is watching. Your beef should be with TNA. I think it's your hate for Robbie that comes out. No, I'm not happy with TNA for doing it that way either, but it doesn't change the fact that it makes Robbie look like a dick. And plus, I don't like Robbie anyway. I think he's a fucking idiot. I don't know why he's on TV. I don't know why they use him. I don't know why he ever gets pushed. I've never been on board with the guy. So, is it my hate for Robbie that's coming out here? Sure. But it's also because the creative end is fucked up too. And I'm starting to lose my voice again, so let's try to get through the last of these questions. Damn it. Here's the thing about the bromance spy cam. I hated it at first, but I started thinking, what if it gets incorporated into a major storyline, like turning a top babyface into a lying, deceiving heel? Well, I think it should turn the bromance into peeping Tom heels. That's basically what they've become now. Suppose there's a possibility of something like that happening. Gail should turn heel and have a Kurt Angle, Bo Dallas character where she's this obnoxious heel who thinks the crowd is on her side. I don't think Gail has the chops to pull off something like that. She's a wrestler. She's not a performer. We should probably have put her in situations where she has to act and perform as little as possible, because that's not her wheelhouse. She's the wrestler. She likes to wrestle. The character end of things isn't really her cup of tea, and I think that's clear at times. Gail should do an open challenge every week where they bring out indie talents to face her, with the winner getting a TNA contract. They kind of did that already, and it just amounted to them bringing in people like Cherry Bomb and Candice LeRae and whatnot, just so Gail could completely squash them and make them look like shit. And if you think that's not how it would happen, I advise you to think a little harder. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice again. Gail has to win the title if Rosemary is going to take it. Not necessarily. Rosemary could take it from Sienna and do a face turn. It all depends what the story is. I don't think Gail has to have the title for Rosemary to take it. Not at all. I'm glad they signed Chelsea. They really needed more faces, and with the wrestling talent they have in the division, her matches should be good. Yeah, I'm happy about that too. I wasn't sold on Chelsea until I saw the explosion match with Jade, which I thought was really good. So I'm happy about that. And they do need more face knockouts. Sorry. Sorry, I gotta end this pretty soon. Do you think Ghost Rider is coming to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? No, I don't. I'm not sure how they could do that on a TV budget. More likely that the poster or that the mural, whatever it was, graphic on the side of the train with the flaming chain, more likely that was referring to Hellfire. When... Oh, so Robbie E. looked like an idiot when he saw Raquel and Jesse Goddard's talking. And do you see the bromance splitting up? And the Bennett Edwards match was great and awesome as well as Hard to Match. Do you see the bromance splitting up? Probably not. They're a necessary evil right now since they've got so few tag teams to work with. I would like them to split up as soon as possible because I think all it's really doing is holding Jesse back from a singles feud, from a singles run at this point, and I don't like Robbie being on my TV anyway, but I don't think they're breaking up. Do you miss doing QC radio with Chess Army? Yeah. I always enjoyed doing that. Who would I like to see Roderick Strong face? I don't know. I'm really not familiar with the NXT roster. I think him facing Austin Aries might be interesting to see how that carries over in NXT. Boy. Okay, guys, I need to end this before 6 o'clock, so I'm going to try to just breeze through the last of these really quickly. What about Broken Matt having his own fictional world championship? Delusional Matt is the next gimmick. No more vanity titles. And we've already got the King of the Mountain title. That's been a vanity title for 2 different guys. No, I don't think so. The way TNA treats Gail is beyond ridiculous. It's like, we get it, you love Gail, but she's 40 and should not be the focus of the division. Thank you. My point exactly. Brooke may have left because she got pregnant. No, she got pregnant after she left. She's confirmed that. You gotta have sugar nearby for your throat. I'm trying to limit my sugar intake, actually. But yeah, I got this for my throat at least. I've never heard that sugar helps with for a scratchy throat. Actually, that's new to me. Robbie is a good worker though, and brings energy to his character more than some of the lame, dry characters, i.e., Lashley. I disagree. I think Lashley is really good right now. Robbie's a good worker. If you say so. He brings energy to his character. Okay, he brings energy to his character, sure. But the character sucks. That's the problem. He can have as much energy as he wants, but if the character is stupid, that doesn't matter. Are you excited for the Justice League film next year? I'd be more excited if Batman v Superman had been better, and I think it's happening entirely too soon. I think it's dumb that it's happening before all the solo films. So we get Superman, then Batman v Superman, then Wonder Woman, then right into Justice League. So the new Batman doesn't get a solo movie. Aquaman and Flash and Cyborg don't get solo movies. I'll see it because we've been waiting forever for the Justice League movie to hit the screen, but they're rushing it. It's happening entirely too quickly, and I'm not. I have very little faith that they're not going to screw it up. Robbie E. is not a good wrestler, nor is he funny. If he wasn't in TNA, it would not be on any other TV wrestling promotion. Yeah. Bromance spying on women is what faces do, right? As far as the TNA writers would have us believe, yeah, I think it's really creepy. And I think it's kind of disrespectful what they did to Raquel. I thought it was a pretty shitty thing to do, actually. It doesn't make me like them. Oh, using a camera to spy on women, take their clothes off. That's the kind of thing that assholes and perverts and peeping toms do. I don't like the bromance for doing this. It's not funny. It's not entertaining. It's just revolting. That happened in real life. They'd be getting arrested for that. The character sucks, but that shouldn't be against Robbie. That should be against TNA. No, I think it should be against Robbie. As well as TNA. You hate Robbie because TNA doesn't know how to create characters. I think they know how to create characters. I think the problem is that this particular character sucks, and this particular performer either has no idea how to make the character tolerable, or worse, he doesn't care. He doesn't care enough to try to. Are you going to see the Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut? Because apparently they've wrote out the wrongs that the fans pointed out. I might check it out. I don't know if I'd be interested in paying for it. Maybe if I could find a free cut of it somewhere. I don't know. I don't really feel the need to watch the match. Not the match. I don't feel the need to watch the movie again. But we'll see. I might see it out of curiosity. Do you think Matt Hardy will win a Razzie Award for his performance? Well, it's bad enough. I don't think wrestlers get Razzies, though. And I'll get the last one, and that'll be it, because my voice is really dying out here. Do you see Rebel's contract running out with Impact and then comes back in a year or in a couple of months? Do you see Rebel turning face and feuding with Rosemary? I could see her contract running out. If it did, I don't necessarily know that they'd bring her back because I don't think she's a high priority. And supposedly her biggest proponent, Christy Hemme, is now gone. So I think if her contract ran out and she left, she'd probably just stay gone. What about Eddie Edwards? Last question here, guys, and then I gotta go. What about Eddie Edwards using his Die Hard gimmick and Davey Richards coming back to feud with him for the X title? I don't know, the Die Hard gimmick. Could that be copyrighted from our... Would ROH have a Die Hard thing copyrighted? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to see Eddie wrestling ladder matches with a broken arm, because that's just unsafe. Really doesn't do Eddie any favors. If Davey coming back to feud with him for the X title, maybe in a friendly, like a friendly competition type of thing. I wouldn't want them to see them feud with each other for any length of time. Damn it. I do think I would like to see them become single stars in their own right at some point, but do a thing where they're still friends and they can there's nothing stopping them from teaming up together when there's a reason to do it, so that way we don't lose the Wolves as a unit. And I think that's what needs to happen. That's what I would like to see. And that's going to be it, guys. I have other stuff to do now, so I got to end it here. Sorry it happened so late. Sorry. Hopefully we'll be back doing this on Saturday next week. But like I said, really busy weekend. I didn't have time to do it until now. So thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you next week, hopefully next Saturday. If I have to change the dates again, there'll be a notice on Twitter about that. And so follow me on Twitter. Link is down there. And I will talk to you soon. All right, later.